Hello, everyone. Welcome to another recap binge. We did one for Stranger Things when that came out on Netflix, and Punisher just dropped on Friday. So we tried to get something out quickly. Unfortunately, we weren't thinking about it because all of you were busy and some of you didn't get a chance to watch it. So hopefully you'll come back, check this out. We're going to do it in installments. So if you watch episodes 1 through 3 and you're like, I wonder what Tom and Kimber have to say about this, you can check it afterwards or just wait and watch everything. Real quick, hello to everyone in the chat. That's including Joe and Ashley, Cal, Eric Ossemacher. I saw Corey and Tom Zambino stop by just to say hello.
Did anyone tell Cal that the episode started?
Someone should tell Cal the episode started. Cal. Okay. My name's Tom, by the way.
I'm Kimber.
And welcome to Odd Shape Channel. We're going to be doing Odd Batch 2 Batch, a speed recap of Punisher Season 1. This is Mavis. You want to come by and say hello too? It's a party. So, overall, I really like this season, and we'll go into a little bit more. Some episodes were slower than others, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, I think. But we're going to be going into four 3-episode segments. So we'll warn you ahead of time because I know not everyone has had a chance to watch the whole thing.
Oh, Joe's here. It's lit now, he says. Joe's hip. Don't bag on him in the chat.
Who was that said that? Oh, I know who it was now. I met a kid who refused to take anyone seriously who uses the term lit, and so I started to use it around him. Episode 1. It's called 3 a.m. I know it looks a little confusing. It looks like episode 1 through 3. That is what we're doing. Maybe they did that for our benefit. But, all right. So one of the cooler introductions back into a series, well, not back into because it's the first one, but back into a character. He's finishing up his business, excuse me, from Daredevil Season 2, which he was after those 3 gangs. And if you haven't seen Daredevil Season 2 and have only watched The Punisher, you're missing out. But we see him cleaning up house. First, he's taking down the Dogs of Hell, and we also get treated to a really cool like sniping sequence that shows Castle taking out someone in Mexico who thinks they're perfectly safe, and he's all the way in Texas. And it was really cool because there was that delay.
I loved that shot because we got it from which perspective did it start out on?
It started out there as if we thought we were watching them, but it turns out we were looking through the scope.
Yeah, because I remember like we see the shot or whatever, and then like it pulls all the way, like there's a long delay or some crap, and then it like pulls all the way back to show you
how far he
was. It was
establishing
cool.
Distance. That was really cool. At that point I was like, all right, they're gonna come up with some cool new things for Punisher besides just a shoot 'em up. Because as much as I like cool fun movies like shoot 'em up, it does get a little tiring for a whole season, I would feel. After he's done, he burns the skull, and he becomes Frank Castiglione, which is actually Pete. Sorry. Well, Frank Castiglione, he is Pete, but Frank Castiglione is actually Frank Castle's real name in the comics. He takes Frank Castle as like an alias. But he starts working as a construction worker. We see him sporting a beard.
Nice beard on
hipster
him.
Beard.
He looks cool with the beard, actually.
I liked it too. It was funny because he did a bunch of interviews at Comic-Con last year and he had the beard, and I thought it was for a different role.
Interesting.
But maybe it was they filmed at the same time, because I know he did. It was like the mustache, Justice League mustache thing. He was required to have a beard for another role. But
so
I
maybe
guess
they just used it for his, like,
yeah, exactly.
Because he's undercover, you know, he doesn't want to get busted. It makes sense for him to have the beard.
Joe, I also love shoot 'em up. Depending on the shot, I don't know if a bullet will do it, depending on the caliber. Cal, if anyone's gonna find a way, Punisher's going to.
Yeah, also, like, with comic book stuff, I think people should not nitpick on things like that because it's supposed to be over the top and comic book styled. And
if that's the most, like, far-fetched thing from the series, there it is, when we have in other series, like, people taking bullets to the face and being fine. I think a little disillusion.
Yeah, you kind of just have to like let stuff like that go and go with it in a show like this.
Ashley is a fan of construction worker Castle, and back to that, he has a beard and a hammer. He's very Thor-like, but he's bothered daily by Lucas and his goons, who he doesn't talk to anybody, so they think he's slow, which there's no problem with, but they're just jerks. Throughout the episode, it's evident that Frank needs something to hit, as he spends most of his day as like a one-man wrecking crew. He's there before everybody gets there. He's the last person to leave, and you can just see, like, now that he doesn't have people to shoot, he doesn't have anywhere to focus that rage, and it's very evident. And I think they use flashbacks really well, not only in the first episode but throughout the whole series, which we'll get back into. Castle also spends his time at a veteran support group, but he's listening from the hallway. He's not necessarily in with everybody. It's being run by his friend Curtis, who lost his leg while on tour with Castle. We also meet Donnie, who is like the new kid on the block at the construction yard, and he's trying to pay for his grandmother's medicine, also trying to make up for getting locked up as a kid. Donnie tries to befriend Pete, only to be told that it's a lost cause. Donnie tries to impress the other guys from work, including Lucas, by dropping like $400 at the bar, leaving him broke and desperate, because keep in mind, he is trying to save up this money for his grandma. When one of the men at Lucas's crew gets his arm crushed, and I think it's kind of funny that Castle doesn't help him, they bully Donnie into helping them make real money.
Joe says he's out of his element. That's funny, Joe. Because Donnie. Okay, keep going.
By robbing the Mafia's poker game. Sorry, guys. So they're going to rob this Mafia's poker game. While holding up the mobsters, Donnie drops his wallet, and like everybody sees it. And panicking, the crew goes back to the construction site, deciding to kill Donnie to protect themselves. Unlucky for them, Castle is still there with hammer in hand. He takes out the entire crew brutally, breaking the tension that has been present. Like every time Frank picks up that hammer, like I got tense. I thought it was done really well.
See, I think it's interesting that you compared him to Thor, because to me he kind of more reminded me of like Chernobog from American Gods or something.
Yeah.
With the hammer, just like this rage underneath.
The Thor was more of a haha, because it's a hammer and a beard. But that makes more sense, because like he only needs one blow, but Frank Castle will take more than one blow.
Yeah, well, he only needs one, but that dude is like king of the excessive.
Yeah, and I thought
overkill.
I thought overall the gore in this was done really well. I'm not big on gore, and it was just enough to, like, that first shot when he first hits him with the hammer and we got like spit and blood onto the camera. I was like, yeah, all right.
I think it's appropriate for something like this, because that is kind of how the character is presented, like in the comic.
Yeah.
From what I know about it.
And as I was saying, it like helped release the tension when actual I don't know. I'm not going to get too into it, but I thought it was really interesting. So Castle takes out all the guys in the crew. He finds out where the mobsters were, and he leaves the money for Donnie after saving him. Donnie was in like this cement thing, and so the three bodies are now in the cement thing. Donnie has a rope, and at the end of the rope is a bag of money. Frank shows up at the poker game. These guys have figured out where Donnie's grandmother lived. They're going to go through there and take her if they need to, take her out. And Frank just ghosts them quickly and makes it look like a murder-suicide. And as he leaves, he's caught on camera, and we see a man like say, "Oh, hello, Frank, welcome back." Like, so somebody knows Frank is alive. And that is episode 1. Did I miss anything, Kimber, that you can think of? Oh, sorry. Not to interrupt you. Madani. We didn't talk anything about Madani. Madani just took a new position with Homeland Security after working in Afghanistan. She's partnered with the sarcastic Sam Stein, who we learn has been on the department shit list for a while. She's determined to find out the cause of her friend and partner's death overseas, but she's told to stop by Wolf, who is her superior and a jerk of a boss. Yes, the gait recognition, which I thought is clever. I wonder if I'm sure it's real. But there's a lot to say in a way somebody walks, I guess. So, hello, Matt. Welcome to the chat. That's our local buddy, the Bear Mongolia. Did I miss anything?
I don't know. My memory is terrible, so I'm gonna believe your notes because we only did watch it the one time so far.
Alrighty. And keep in mind, we are not going to be able to hit every beat. So if there's something we missed that you guys want to talk about in between the breaks when you call in, let us know.
Yeah, Tom takes much shorter, more shorthand notes than I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if Billy was not in one. If Billy was in one, he didn't do anything.
Because I don't think we see him.
No,
until
he shows
the
up. He
flashback.
shows up at Anvil when Madani next episode. Okay. So episode begins with Frank having a flashback about the Statue of Liberty and what like him and his kids are talking about freedom. His son says something like crass, and Frank gets scary, but at the same time, Frank's not wrong for kind of being like, "Don't say that. That's not appropriate." But he could have handled it better. Castle's at dinner, and Castle's at a diner in Hell's Kitchen when he gets a phone call from Micro. Lieberman tells Frank that he needs him and that he isn't the only ghost in New York. Frank tries to track down Micro only to find a decoy and realizes Lieberman was on the diner roof the whole time. I thought that was really clever. I got a kick out of it. Frank meets with Karen, asking her to look into it. She finds out Micro was an NSA analyst who was killed while escaping arrest from Homeland Security.
And I like his shtick on how he got Karen's attention in the street by acting like a veteran looking for change or whatever.
Well,
like
it was almost too like just to see like where Karen was at, and Karen was like, "Here's actual money, not just pocket change." And she's like, "Well, glad to see you're still bleeding heart, Karen."
Yeah, because like he knew that's how she was gonna react.
And for a minute, Karen was genuinely worried that like he was actually just on the street now. You know what I mean? Because that was a real possibility, especially with the beard. So where were we at? Where escaping arrest. So Frank visits Lieberman's wife by getting hit by a car. And while making Micro panic as we find out that he has his own house bug, Lieberman shows up with a gun and waits outside his own house. Frank remains pleasant, bonding with Sarah over loss and fixed her garage door before leaving. Learning that Wolf killed Micro, Frank visits the Homeland lead agent at home and kills him after gathering info. I thought the way, because Frank went in there with only one bullet in his gun and made Wolf thought he had the upper hand.
Yeah, that was a cool scene. I remember that.
And of course, it's almost like Black Widow style of interrogation, like give them a false sense of like security and they'll tell you everything.
Well, he was doing like the classic like villain trope where he thinks he's about to kill the guy, so he starts like unveiling his plan too much.
Which is fine because it gets him killed. Frank snaps his neck. And he ends up so after the intel, he reaches out to Lieberman and he like sends him on this wild goose chase all over the city. Finally, he has him meet. He has Micro meet Frank. Frank has Micro meet him at Micro's own grave, only to be met by Curtis. Curtis.
This is when he sends him like down that whole wild goose chase to again like lull him into like a sense of like repetitiveness to
routine.
Yeah,
because they talk about that later. And Curtis tells him like, okay, Frank doesn't want anything to do with this. Just don't bother. Frank has you in his sights now. If you try to shoot me, you're gonna go down. And so Lieberman doesn't shoot him because Lieberman doesn't shoot anybody. And he goes back to the hideout only to have Frank follow him and capture him. Which
was smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Micro a lot. I'll talk more about him later, but he was probably my favorite part of the show.
Yeah, he was really good supporting cast. Dinah looks into the Anvil privatized military force and meets Billy Russo, its owner. Billy invites her out for drinks, and at the bar tells her Frank would have been against the heroin deal in Kandahar, as she's informed of Wolf's death. So that's episode 2.
Yep. Yeah, that Billy dude is supposed to be pretty, and I think they very much succeeded there because that dude is super pretty.
He is pretty. During episode 3. What are we doing?
What are you doing?
I don't know. I got lost.
Episode 3.
Yeah, I literally just said Kandahar. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to be professional with this thing, and I'm being unprofessional with this thing. Episode 3, Kandahar.
Wait, go click the chat. It's the dude that plays Logan in Westworld. I thought he was very pretty in that too, and also a dick.
Oh yeah, it is him. I knew he looked familiar. That's cool.
Like he looked familiar to me, but honestly, he's just kind of like a generic, handsome,
pretty boy
dark-haired.
dickhead.
Yeah. So like he
Yep.
didn't stand out to me like, oh, that's definitely someone, but like I noticed he was pretty both times. Like
So in episode 3, Kandahar, Castle interrogates Micro until like buzzers begin to ring, and Lieberman tells him that if he doesn't turn off the buzzers himself, that the hideout will explode. We find out that Micro was killed for finding the video of the Kandahar operation. Yeah, I said killed in quotes. Interrogating continues until we find out that instead of an actual bomb, the countdown will broadcast Micro's death to the world. Lieberman then reveals that the pen he has been using to do the coding is actually a tranquilizer, and he takes down Castle, which I thought was cool. I didn't see that coming. Castle, well,
sorry, sidebar. They're saying that he looks like Joe Starr. That's funny.
That.
I think Joe Starr's pretty too. He's my favorite one. So yeah, nice.
Castle wakes up with his own gun on his chest on a bed, revealing that Micro is telling the truth. Like, he is not trying to kill Frank Castle. He just wants his help. Frank is still groggy when he wakes up. We get to peek into Operation Cerberus. Now, I think this is interesting because one of the first shots of this season so far is the Dogs of War and him taking them down. And then in this, he's part of Operation Cerberus, which are like the dogs of the underworld. So there's a lot of like different like ghost references. Like we just had an episode 2, You're Not the Only Ghost in New York. There's a one later in the season.
For sure, that I was a big fan of.
Yes.
Is this when he tells the Cerberus story?
No, I think that's late. It's either later on the episode. I didn't write down the actual antidote. I'll bring up the antidote now, though, because it doesn't really matter. It's not spoilers or anything. Micro is talking to Frank, and this is one of my favorite antidotes ever. I don't remember where I learned it, so I'm no way in like saying that I came up with it first because I didn't. I read it somewhere.
One of his like things he likes to tell.
Yeah. So now I'm a little bummed out now. More people know it. But Cerberus is actually Greek for spotted, which means that the Lord of the Underworld named his dog Spot. So that's just a fun little antidote. I always say that. I say antidote because my humor is poisonous.
Leave people alone, Eric. You always be correcting people. We know when we mess up. Give us a damn break.
He's Hat Boy. He's on a mission. All right. So including an op that Castle. Oh, okay. So we get a peek into the operation, and we also like the main thing we see is that there's an operation where Agent Orange, the lead dude, who gets too turned on by torture, and it gets brought up. Castle warns him that this operation is definitely a trap that they're going into, and he doesn't listen, and they go in, and like the guy from season 2, the what was his moniker? Was it the Bishop? No.
From season 2 of Daredevil?
I can't remember what his name. I thought it was like Black Bishop or something. I don't remember. Somebody in the chat will probably remember. But the Punisher's villain from season 2 of Daredevil, that's where you get to see his arm get blown off. So that's kind of the origin for his character too. And we see Frank come up and beat the hell out of Agent Orange with the butt of his gun. And I'm pretty sure it takes his eye, right? Because that's a glass eye he's wearing, or they just like make it milky. The character in the comic books wears an eye patch, so I'm assuming he took.
Yeah, they're all like it is Clancy Brown. Is the actor?
Oh, the Kurgan.
He's the damn Kurgan. Hell yeah! I
should have just said Lieutenant Kurgan. So, and that leaves a pretty cool scar. We see that Madani is now the new lead
Sergeant Mr. Krabs. That's funny.
the new lead, and Sam tells her that Wolf had $30 million in offshore accounts. And trust is still like a major conflict between Stein and Dinah. That's pretty much episode 3. It's just Milky? Okay. So episode 3. So do we want to do 3 segments of 4 or 4 segments of 3?
That's totally up to you and the chat.
Joe, how far have you gotten?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Let us know in the chat how far you have gotten. How far you have gotten in the show. This song's for Cal because he likes when I sing. Anything that comes to mind.
Oh,
He's in the Flash.
They're far. They just finished 10.
Oh,
so.
okay. So we're gonna do 3 segments of 4 instead of 4 segments of 3. I think that makes more sense. So we're gonna go right into episode 4, which is named. Sorry, guys. Resupply, for good reason. Because what is the Punisher without guns? Frank finds Turk, who has been a character in, I believe, every episode of every Netflix show so far. I think he's the one character who's been in every single one. Frank finds Turk looking for guns, only to find a pink Ruger with no ammo.
That was funny.
Frank shows back up, has words with Micro, like your intel was wrong, and he gets a call from Sarah asking him to come back and sign some insurance paperwork. Micro sends him off to Sarah because it's important that like she's not affected by any of this. And I know he's badass, Joe, without the guns, but on every comic book cover of the Punisher, what is he holding? A gun.
At least one.
At least one. One that we can see. Micro sends him to see Sarah, and he tells him that I'll find new guns. So putting Kandabar behind her, Madani is head of a sting operation to catch the Greeks in an arms deal. Frank helps Sarah. Frank helps Sarah with the sink, finding out that Lieberman always hired a guy instead of getting his hands dirty, which he kind of like, oh, so I'm the hired guy. Frank fixes Sarah's headlight to save her some hassle and comes back to Micro, who reveals he found where to get the guns. We see Lewis from Curtis's support group at home, who almost shoots his dad, later building a trench in his backyard. Lewis is having a hard time. Frank takes Macro with him, telling him he needs to get his hands dirty. They pull off the heist successfully, but Madani is on Frank's tail, and she challenges Castle to a game of chicken when Madani is blindsided by Micro.
Which was awesome.
Yeah.
I did not see that part coming.
Frank saves her and reveals to her that he's not dead, and Frank misses Sunday dinner with Sarah and the family. So that...
Now we'll have callers.
Yeah, now we'll have callers. That was episodes
1 through 4. And if you guys want to call in, let us know in the chat, and we'll take a couple people for the first round here.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Let's see chat.
Eric wants to come in. All right.
Rightfully so. He was by far the first person in.
Yeah, and he's been very excited about it on Twitter.
I'm sure that
what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put the link in the chat.
Matt will probably want to call in at some point too. He was hitting me up about Punisher.
As long as we take turns, I have no problem with multiple people in the chat, so we can try to get through this a little quicker. So, this is the Punisher show. I bet you didn't expect a show like this, because it's that bad.
Punisher the musical.
Oh my god. Who wants to get shot in the face? Shot in the face. Shot in the face all over the place.
The bullets just make the music. The guns going out.
It's just like a Suicide Squad trailer.
I forgot to turn on my lights over there. So for this time, you got a little spookier room. It's darker because of Punisher.
It's gritty, Hat Boy.
Gritty Hat Boy. No need for a mask. I could just cover my eyes like it's Arrow season 1. All right. Hey guys.
This podcast. How's it going?
It's going good. I binged it. I watched the first 3 episodes last night, and then watched the other 10 today. So
I did the opposite. We watched like the first 9 a few days ago, and then yesterday was just really busy, and then today I finished it up with a few episodes. But or was that yesterday?
It's like peeking ahead. Episode 10 was my absolute favorite. We'll talk about that when we get to that. So, speaking of this episode, you guys kind of missed a huge chunk of your recap of episode 3. I guess I'll start off with. You didn't talk about any of what happened with Castle and David in present day. Just the whole torture, the whole time Frank was torturing David because he didn't know if he could trust. What?
Let me look at here.
He talked about he said that he had it rigged so that he thought there was going to be a bomb and stuff. He didn't mention that stuff. He just kind of.
It's like I might have missed it, or it's just I was listening for things I didn't hear because he was pretty much waterboarding him, and probably one of my best parts of that episode was when David lured Frank into this sense of routine.
Yeah, and it's the same exact thing he did.
And then he just does it and he does it. And then it's like when he kept using the pen to enter the code, so it just became like he uses the pen to enter the code, and then he's just like
he scans his eye or whatever.
Yeah, and then he gets a drop on him, and he's just like, and then he has this whole thing. It's like, and Frank's like, "Why didn't you kill me?" It's like, have you not been listening to a single goddamn thing I've been telling you this entire time? I'm not your enemy. Also, he didn't follow David to his place. He hid in the trunk.
That's what it was. Okay, yeah. That was funny.
Yes, because he had Curtis distract him while he got in the trunk, which I liked a lot. That's one way to find somebody's secret lair.
For sure. And he's so rattled at this point, he's not going to check his car anyway. So
no.
They both know how to play each other pretty well. I will say that.
It was the same exact trick, which was what was funny about it. And I liked them a lot without getting too far ahead. They really have a lot going on in the storyline with these two. And even just the casting on Micro, I'm not too familiar with that guy, but he just has a really interesting face.
Yeah.
He was very expressive, and depending on how which angle you were shooting him, he looked very different at certain times, which I felt like that worked really well with his character because he was such an interesting character with so much going on.
Yeah, pretty much. Talking about these first 4 episodes, when I was watching them, there was a few things that I wanted to happen by the end of the series. Usually, I'm like, this is the Punisher. People are gonna die. So there's only a couple things that people I don't want to die. I didn't want Sam to die. I didn't want Curtis to die. And I didn't want David to die. I wanted David to get back to his family by this point. So I just wanted a nice, satisfying conclusion to that, because that's sometimes these Netflix shows don't really get those satisfying conclusions, and I think we needed that. And not saying whether or not it happens. It's just something I wanted by this point in the binge.
Yeah, I felt that way too. I was really worried that something would happen, and I'm not going to spoil whether or not it did, but I was scared that Sarah could be at risk at any point of this because now Frank's involved. You know what I mean? So that was something that was always in the back of my head too.
Yeah.
And just knowing he could see them on camera at any given moment made you really nervous for the family.
And of course, just knowing these Netflix series, I also had my suspicions that one of Frank's old friends was going to betray him. Just had that suspicion. I'm like, I don't want it to be Curtis, because Curtis seems like such a nice guy. So I had my suspicions on Billy from the moment he said I was Frank's best friend.
He's too pretty, man.
Billy being a private military that is not setting you up to be the good guy. So no. I don't think anyone was like, I think Billy's going to be the hero of this story. Although I was curious if they were going to do, because I will say, and for anyone who hasn't looked into these characters' histories, don't. But I don't know much about Punisher's history, so I didn't recognize some of these characters going in. So I thought maybe, oh, is this? I couldn't remember. Is this that time he gets all those guys in like that 5-man team, where he gets those buddy punishers together? Like I couldn't remember place them. So I was like, maybe is that kind of like a thing coming up with Billy? So I was like, okay, so maybe they'll be working together at some point. At this, I didn't know where I was at with Billy at this point.
And had I known he was the dude from Westworld, I would have been even more suspicious.
Yeah, that's true.
Did it get to the point where with Madani and Billy's sort of more scenes? I think that more
that?
sort of scenes.
Were they bang?
Yeah, were they bang? I don't know. I don't know. I was trying to be PG.
No, they banged in episode. I know they banged in episode 5. It's in my notes.
Okay, good. So it's next group.
Very descriptive notes.
Yeah, it's like, but yeah.
But was there one moment in this like block of episodes that like really stood out to you? Like, was there a sequence or like a reveal?
Definitely. It's like I was thrown for a loop in episode 1 just because it's like you essentially you have episode 1 and then you have the other 12 episodes of this series, where it's like episode 1 just feels like its own self-contained story, has practically nothing to do with the rest of the series other than the very end scene when David Lieberman says like, I found you, and then pretty much it's just like it's all set up for stuff that happens later with the
I wonder if they did that on purpose. I wonder if they were like, all right, here's the set of the tone we're going for. Like, here's a little like so to show Netflix or something. You know what I mean? Like, here's like a little compound story, and we're gonna go from that or something like that. Because it did feel very much like a in between episode that would have taken place. Like it could have been a Daredevil or a Punisher episode. That it felt that kind of.
And it's like just based on the first episode, I thought the kid was gonna come back and be like a main character, sort of like, because like if this was like Jessica Jones or Daredevil or Iron Fist, he'd be back by episode 5.
Yeah, I was also waiting at this point for Donnie to check back in or something, by episode 4, but it didn't happen. All right.
I was legitimately surprised he was just in episode 1. I'm like, wow, that was a lot of story for a 1 episode character.
Donnie made it out best.
Yeah,
out of everyone in the whole series. So
yeah, you did good.
All right.
Good.
Well,
without getting too far,
we'll have you back for the next block of calls. So I'm not going to eject you. Hang up so you can pop back in later. Yep. All right. I learned that if you eject people from calls, they can't call back in. So they have to hang up themselves. I'm just making a vocal outcry that I have learned this as a person. So there is a link in the chat. I can repost it if it's gotten too far back. But whoever would like to call in next, you're more than welcome. If we don't have any more callers for this section, we can just move on. It's up to you. Actually, okay, so while we're waiting for somebody, let me read. You guys have been very active in the chat. Kimber says she was okay with all the banging.
You know me.
I do. Ashley says she misses Donnie. I miss Donnie too. I still haven't seen Iron Fist. I'm reading your comments about Iron Fist. I just don't think it's worth it. I do think that after Defenders, this is a nice upswing from where they were at with the Netflix shows. It's a shame those are kind of going to be deteriorating with the Disney streaming. I don't know. I kind of hope they at least keep those properties on Netflix for a while. I would like at least 4 seasons of Daredevil. I don't want them to throw away Kingpin. He's too good. I know he's gonna be back for season 3. So there's that. Hey Dub, we're talking about your favorite show. Oh, I'm so excited. I was hoping Dub would come in. Dub, I don't know if you've seen it, but if you want to come in and give your opinions on the show at any point, you're more than welcome. Was it more fun? I heard you don't even get to see a dragon. All right, I'm guessing no one else wants to call in. Is that the feeling I'm getting?
Yeah, just keep going.
Guys?
Next part.
Dub says, F that actor. Although he said it more poetically.
He likes Warzone.
Yeah. I was talking about Warzone earlier today. Kimber hasn't seen it. And I was like, for what it is, it's not like big budget or anything like that. It was one of those Marvel Knights movies, which I thought were going to get cool. That's where I thought we were going to see Moon Knight originally. I thought after Warzone, we would definitely be getting a Moon Knight movie. Didn't happen that way, but I enjoyed it. I like the Thomas Jane Punisher, and it's mostly, I think it just has a little bit of charm.
We're getting some tweets if you're interested.
We're getting some tweets. Let's read some tweets.
Billy is once again saying that Russo looks like Joe Starr. Yusuf says he can't make it, but he wanted to say that it was sad, okay action, and a little repetitive since we already had some semblance of closure in Daredevil 2.
Yeah, that's the thing, though. Frank Castle never finds closure. That's his thing.
And because this was about him, we got to focus on more like PTSD, which I felt like was the theme of the show.
Yeah, I was gonna get to like the overall things at the end of it, but that was definitely a common theme throughout all the episodes. And you said it the best earlier, is we get to see different viewpoints of how people can handle PTSD, because I'm not going to say that I experience that, because I don't.
But yeah, we'll talk more about that, but we get 3 very distinct points of view on how people handle coming home from war. Episode 5.
I was picking on my Thomas Jane Punisher.
I like Thomas Jane Punisher.
You know what it is? Honestly, it's the soundtrack. I had that on CD. I'm not gonna lie. All right, so episode 5, Gunner. All right, so Micro is mad at Frank that he saved Medini and risked his status as dead. Together they put together.
Let's say as a team, they put together.
Thank you. Castle's family was killed because of the attackers thought that Castle made the video, and Frank says it was Gunner. Meanwhile, Dinah meets with Karen, and each seem to be testing each other to know if the other one knows that Frank's alive. Karen meets with Frank, warning him not to make these men into martyrs because he wants to kill everyone. She's like, what's that going to accomplish? And we find out that Agent Orange is getting a promotion within the CIA. He sends a hit squad after Gunner, thinking he's the only loose end because I forgot to write down her name, but the head of the CIA was like, make sure there's no skeletons in your closet because I don't want anything to bite us in the ass. And so...
Dub, I resent your pineapple on pizza comment. I am a fan of pineapple on pizza. Sorry.
Castle also goes to Gunner for intel as the squad falls upon them. Micro uses a drone to help Gunner and Castle, but they lose Gunner in the crossfire and almost lose Frank in the process. Billy and Medini bang. That's episode 5.
He literally, I gotta let you guys know, he literally has a whole paragraph of the episode, then a space, and then there's a line that says Billy and Medini bang, and then there's another space in episode 6. So he put a whole line in between that. It's funny.
Yeah, that's the base of it. I think also in episode 5, Lewis does something. I can't remember what it was, but I don't like Lewis. We'll get to Lewis.
I don't think you're necessarily supposed to like Lewis. He's representing the really
radical,
worst way things could go, I think. How's the chat? I was eating pineapples last night. I literally have some in the fridge. Delicious.
I guess we get to know the point. Like to know the motive, villain's motive. Man, what was that? I couldn't even talk there. Villain's motive, something to do with pineapples. The villain's motive was pineapples. Episode 6, the Judas Goat. So pretty much the episode talking about the goat. There's a part during the episode where Curtis is talking about a goat that he was giving in the Marines, and they had to take care of this goat. But by taking care of this goat, and they meant that they would put a goat by a bomb and let the bomb go off, and they would have to patch him up. And so he's talking about, like, I had to patch him up until he just died from being patched together so much. We also get to see Curtis patching up Frank. So I'm wondering if Curtis is also thinking about Frank in that moment as he's patching him up. Like, how many times are you going to be put back together before you just give up? You know what I mean? Because that's one thing I liked about Punisher. They were not afraid to let him get his ass kicked.
He certainly takes a beating.
And yes, this is the Goat Simulator episode, as Dub says. So Sam later tells Dinah that Gunner is found dead in Kentucky. We later learn that Lieberman called it into police so that he'd have a proper burial. Frank did promise Gunner that he would bury him, so at least he's not just out there rotting in the woods. As for non-spoilers in the chat, you guys are going hard. Medini finds Frank's blood on the scene, as well as a bunch of missing bodies from the firefight. It's evident that there was a lot of guns firing off, and there's more blood. There should have been more bodies, and they're like, what happened? As Frank recovers, Lieberman watches his son strike his own sister over a skateboard, which the sister didn't even snitch, but the kid's paranoid and says that everyone's a traitor. That kid's just a little asshole. Castle opens up about his own wife, and they each start talking about Thanksgiving, like their traditions and stuff like that. Then they hear Billy looking for Frank on the radio, Blackbird Raven.
The kid's an asshole, but he's an asshole because his dad is presumed dead. And
it's just funny because Frank just calls him an asshole into his face, and I love it. Frank meets with Billy because Micro and Frank have a discussion. Can we trust him? And Frank's like, yeah, we can trust him. He doesn't look shady at all. As everyone on this end of the screen is like, don't do it. So Frank meets with Billy, and he's like, look, I can get you out of the country. I can get you a new life working for me. So Frank thinks about it. He then visits Sarah to apologize for missing dinner and tells her that her family is going to be okay. Things are going to turn around for the Lieberman family.
But really, he's kind of talking to Micro, it feels like, a little bit.
I remember what happened with Lewis. Lewis he wanted to join Anvil last episode, but Curtis told Billy, because they are friends, that not to hire Lewis. He's digging up trenches in his backyard. He's acting crazy, and so Lewis is like all torn up now. So Lewis is not protesting, handing out literature with O'Connor, the gun nut from Vietnam. And they're just handing out stuff. And to be fair, like, I empathize with Lewis in this aspect where he isn't doing anything wrong. He's like, I don't have an amplifier, which is why we would need a permit. We're not a crowd of 20 people. Like, we're doing everything legal, and the cop now is just an ego thing with the cop. So that sucks for him, but he gets thrown into jail. And Curtis bails him out because O'Connor doesn't call him back, and I don't think he wanted to call his dad. And so Curtis tells him, like, look, Lewis is a liar. Like, he didn't serve in Vietnam. He didn't come into the military until 1977, and he never left the States. And like, because O'Connor would show off like a medal he won from Vietnam and would tell all these stories. So like, Lewis confronts O'Connor at his home and kills him. And Billy waits for Frank. Frank's not showing up, and he's like, all right, he's not coming. And as he says that, pans over, and there's Agent Orange. So suspicions confirmed. Billy is working with the bad guys.
They do kind of still like keep teasing, like, is he really like helping Frank or wanting to help Frank? Or...
Yeah, because he looks concerned. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's his friend. Skipped over because they bang again, Billy and Medini.
Just assume that there's banging sprinkled throughout the rest of the.
Right, but afterwards he finds the file. Did I put that in the wrong?
I don't know if that's yet.
Yeah, because that's the whole reason he starts looking for Frank. At some point, Billy finds the file with Medini that's for Frank Castle, and he's like, "Why are you looking at my dead friend?" And then that's what gets him to start looking for him on the radio, because he even confronts Curtis about it, and Curtis lies to him. I don't know. I had that written down. I must have deleted.
So Matt in the chat is saying that Lewis was super hard to not feel bad about for him because it hit a nerve thinking about his brother's PTSD from the Gulf War. And I think that means that they're effective in what they were trying to do, because particularly in this situation where he finds that out that the dude is lying about even having seen, action on the front line or whatever.
He thought he understood.
Yeah, you could understand why that would be so frustrating for him and that he would lash out. Not saying that he handled it the best of ways, but you can definitely see why he would feel the way he did about that situation. When does microchip bang Frank?
We'll get there.
That's season 2.
No, I mean, we'll get there. All right, so yeah, that's episode 6. I don't think we missed anything. Right, Eric, it's episode 11. Eric knows what I'm talking about. Okay.
That's funny because I thought he was just saying that because Ashley and Joe are on episode 10 to mess with.
Yeah, you have something to look forward to, Joe and Ashley. So next episode is called Crosshairs. We see Lewis coming home after he does the deed, wraps the body in shower curtain, gets rid of his shirt, and he comes home with like a gun tucked in his back and bloody hands, and his dad confronts him in the kitchen. He's like, "Look, I want you to take these sleeping pills. Like I looked like you when your mother died. Like, I may not know what you're going through, but like I know that these helped me at least sleep, and you should sleep." So he goes down, he sleeps. There's a really intense scene where you think Lewis is about to blow his own head off, but he doesn't. And then later on, he comes back upstairs, and his dad's watching this old fight, and he's like trying. I think the dad's trying to use the fight as like a visual like learning lesson. He's like, watch Ali. Like, he doesn't keep doing the same thing. Like, he adapts, and that's what I like. I don't understand PTSD, but like what you have to do is try to adapt. And Lewis takes that as you need to go build bombs. So we see him like buying stuff, and he's back at O'Connor's place, using that as a place to build these bombs.
It's a shame that Dub missed the Stoney conversation, because I feel like he might have appreciated that story from Ashley and Joe. Yeah, just Google Stoney. See, she wrote it. There's no way she heard me say that on the show before she wrote that in the chat.
So Frank and Micro look to get a name from Bennett. He's the colonel who was involved with the heroin trade from Kandahar. Now, cool thing. This lines up to being, if this is the timeline, the heroin from Kandahar being shipped to New York, because I think that's where they said that the stuff got dropped off, or at least to the States, may be also Adam Gao's ring of heroin in Hell's Kitchen. There's nothing confirming that, but like the timeline kind of suggests it.
Yeah, this season was far less connected
yes.
and way less like Easter eggs and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was more of a bottle. They do. We'll get there, but we get a couple little things, but nothing great. Which, I mean, almost. If it can't stand on its own, what is that to say? You know what I mean? Like Luke, I didn't watch Iron Fist, but from what I understand, like that standalone story couldn't support itself. Like I think you have to make sure get down back to basics.
Yeah, I think they learned something with that whole.
I heard somebody complaining that they didn't even see Avengers Tower. I don't even think they're using Avengers Tower anymore. They're upstate now, so that would kind of be pointless. I think I would have liked a few more little tie-ins, but nothing. But we'll get into that. There are a couple. I mean, we already have Karen and Barrett. Dub's like, wow.
Because he Googled Stoney. That's very tasteful.
All right, so Bennett is located on an army base, and Frank kind of struggles how to deal with, taking down fellow soldiers who are only doing their duty. Dinah finds a bug in her office and trusts Stein with the information. Frank finds Bennett in a compromising position, which is downward-facing dog, fighting off Anvil soldiers while Micro hacks Bennett's phone. They think that Frank's there to kill Bennett. He's not. He's just there to access the phone and use it as a tracer. Frank runs into a young soldier and is forced to shoot him in the leg. Billy kills Bennett once they get to the safe house, but Frank finds the safe house still, and he puts a bullet a few inches from Agent Orange's forehead, which we find out, I don't think his intent there was ever to, I mean, if he could have, he would have killed him right away, but they used the scope imaging to track his face.
Yeah.
So they find out his name, William Rollins. Episode 8. And then we'll do another call-in discussion, right?
Yeah, let us know in the chat if you are interested in calling in about episode 5 through 8.
Unnecessary typing. All right, episode 8, Cold Steel. We get to see Billy's. This is like Billy's episode.
I feel like if you took all the titles of the episodes, it would look like the song titles for like a metal band.
Well, I wanted to get into that. I thought the scoring of Punisher was really cool. It seemed like somebody just did they used some licensed music, and I liked the licensed music. I was scared it was going to be like every 5 seconds Metallica song, like, because that's what the trailer made it kind of feel like. But instead, it was more like they took like licks from like Enter the Sandman or something, and as like they're panning up on something, they're going down, 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 down.
Well, that's not Enter Sandman.
Or what I'm doing. I'm horrible about it.
I think that song is called One, and it's about
One
war being terrible, so it's an appropriate song.
But I meant like they kept using licks from Metallica, and I think they even used like a Black Sabbath lick too at one point, because it sounded like it was cool that like that's how they did the scoring,
instrumental,
as opposed
metal type scenario.
Instrumental. David Lee Roth sings the Punisher episode titles. That's good to know. And I like the intro too. It kind of the whole feel kind of felt like Breaking Bad in a way. If it was more about like the intro for Breaking Bad.
Mm-hmm.
Compare that to like the intro of the Punisher. It kind of has the same. Never mind.
I'd have to watch them side by side, because to me those are two very different.
I don't think they're the exact same thing. I said they kind of feel.
I just don't see the comparison.
We see Billy's daily routine before we see him visiting his mother. We learn that she abandoned him as a child over drugs, because he's like, oh, you have a taste for like narcotics, and he keeps her sedated every day as payback. We also get a history lesson of Billy's scars after they bang, including one from his shoulder he got from a child predator as a boy who also called him pretty. The cameras at Sarah's cutout from the hideout, causing Lieberman to panic, and he sends Frank. Frank visits and finds out that Sarah disconnected the internet to punish her son. Sarah,
Punisher? She's
the Punisher. Sarah and Frank kiss quickly over a few glasses of wine, while Micro watches. Obviously, Castle, it was innocent. She was drunk, and lonely, and trying to move on. And Pete was just, there. Castle returns to find a drunk Lieberman. They drink together and get weird. Correction, it's not episode 11, it's episode 8. They get weird. For some reason, Micro needs to tell Frank that he's bigger in the pants region than him, and tries to prove it. Micro,
I don't know how I missed this part.
He literally is like, check out my dick. Check out my. You like my ass?
Me.
You like my ass?
Me. I'm the one who is always talking about more dick in shows, and
we don't see his dick.
But still, just like we're not talking about lady bits in this show anywhere, really.
No, no one talks about a vagina and
but we
waves
get
it
a
around,
dick
though.
combo, and I
Yeah.
missed it.
Saw it. Micro then says they should talk to Madani.
Well, when a dude's named Micro, he can get a bit self-conscious, so.
Tubbs like, wow. Frank is called over. This is X-rated. Frank is called over to Sarah's again over a knife we find in her son's backpack. Frank attempts to kill him and makes him cry. He's just pretty much like, you don't have the guts to use this. Why do you have it? And we find out he's just a scared little boy. And they end up playing catch. Micro almost blows his cover by showing up because he's concerned. And like Frank just sends him away. Dinah and Sam use the bug in the office to set up a sting for whoever's listening by using Castle as bait. Agent Orange has Billy hire some undesirable men to take down Frank, but they end up within a firestorm with Homeland Security, since it was a trap. Billy's the only survivor and kills Stein, who, when cornered, Madani holds Sam as he dies. We see Billy washing the blood off of Madani in the cringiest moment of the season. I think Micro was naked, was he?
There's a lot of chat about that, and yeah, I think he was, because he was like, he kept telling him, "Can I get my pants back?" and stuff.
I thought he was at least in his underwear or something. I didn't think he was naked.
Well, maybe he saw some of it.
Well, look, hey, maybe he's a grower, not a shower.
That's true too.
So that's episode 8. Let's have a recap discussion of episodes 5 through 8.
If you would like to call in and talk about penises, let us know in the chat.
I'm marking this educational. If no one volunteers first, what did I just do? Broken.
There you go.
Why did it do that? Is that so you can save it for later? That's cool to know, so I can do that in the future.
See if we have any takers.
The distant future.
The year 2000. Ashley and Joe still need to watch Flight of the Conchords.
It's not doing it anymore. The distant future. All right, Eric, come on in.
It doesn't work. It's not a big deal.
All right. Well, the lower third's broken, and I can't even turn it off. So it's just gonna say cold steel the entire time.
There you go.
Ba-da-ba-da.
I'm back.
Welcome back.
I'm back. I can't believe that they killed off my favorite character. They had the character I suspected of being a villain kill off my favorite character, and then just that whole sponge bath scene is just like, no, Dina, no, stop, get away from him, please.
Yeah.
Oh
I agree.
God.
I like
what? That's like one thing I really loved about episode 8 was the dichotomy between the fact that, you know, they knew that they were setting up. Well, they didn't know at the time they were setting up a trap for Billy, but they were setting a trap for Billy using Frank as bait. Meanwhile, at the same time, Frank is playing catch with David's kid, and I just love the fact that, oh man, we're gonna go get Frank, and Frank's just like, I'm playing catch. I'm just having a good old time. This is the one episode I'm not really in that, and then it's like, I believe the exact wording that David used when he was drunk was, you know, I'm hung like a moose.
I missed this, definitely. I did not see one of it, this moose hanging.
Also, it's like they could have gone so many directions with the Frank Sarah kiss, and I'm glad they went this direction, because then like I'm like, it's like, because then we probably would have had like an entire episode where David's really mad at Frank that he kissed his wife, but he's just like, yeah, I mean, I get it. She thinks I'm dead. It's not your fault.
Yeah,
I'm just
and
gonna
I don't
drink.
think that, like, I don't think Frank was like trying any of that anyways. I think he was there because of the micro thing, and like honestly, like he knew that this dude was watching the whole time, so I don't think he had any motivation to
Like,
be doing that.
If he wanted to do it, he would have done it before he plugged the cameras
Yeah.
back in.
That's true too. If he wanted to do it, he could have done it before he plugged the cameras back in.
yeah, that is true. That is true. And
Did you miss anything that you wanted to do?
Trying to think if you missed anything. Let's see, we talked about that. That's like I really liked Gunner's character, because he's just like this guy. It's just like pretty much I was watching this and I'm like, this is how Netflix would do Arrow, just essentially.
Nice.
It's just a dude from full camo, face paint, shooting people with arrows. It's kind of ironic that the most damage Frank took in that firefight was from his ally.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Did you
and
also
Cal's saying in that the drone guidance scene was pretty cool with David in the van gutting them through this laptop. I'm like, that was cool. I like that. And also, it's a nice bit of foreshadowing when Dina's talking about how he's got all those scars all over his body, but none on his pretty face. And I'm like, immediately after that, I'm like, if this dude survives, he's getting scars on his face.
Whoa. Yeah, be quiet though, because we're not that far, and there are people who have not seen that.
I'm just saying my thought at this point in the show. I'm like, if this dude survives, he's getting his face fucked up.
Come on, man.
No, I'm sorry.
Anything about these episodes that's not ruining the show for other people?
I mean, I didn't say that he did. I'm saying that's what I thought at the time.
Moving forward, though,
Yeah.
Did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about?
No. The most I want to talk about is in episode 10. So.
Okay, cool. Right. Did anybody else want to?
I don't know.
Call in?
Da-da-da-da.
Yeah, let us know in the chat if you guys wanted to call in for this bit. Ashley and Joe, did you guys want to call in? Because I know we're going to start getting into episodes you haven't seen yet.
Ba-da-ba. So we're not going to have cool little title cards anymore because Google.
Maybe if it'll work now if you turn it off and turn it on again.
Cal says it's a cool shirt.
Thank you. This is from the comic book shop back home in my hometown. They do these free screen printing events. So you just bring like a sweater and they screen print it on there for you. They have different ones every year. And Sweet D actually sent me this one. So thanks, D.
Ba-da-ba-ba. All right, so the next episode is called Front Towards Enemy. And I'm writing it down right now, putting it in red. Oh, we're back. Okay, cool. All right. So I thought this was really cool because I kind of forgot about Lewis. But while Frank and Micro are staking out Madani's office, trying to figure out whether or not they can trust her, bombs go off at 2 police stations and at the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms building. Lewis writes a letter to Karen to publish it in the paper so that the world can hear his message. And Karen disagrees. Like she puts an editorial below it while still publishing it, saying like, I don't agree with it. Like he's just a coward and a terrorist. That's how Frank feels too. That making bombs is cowardly. Lewis is loosely based on Timothy McVeigh, I read. So that's interesting. But she's all later on. Karen's at a radio interview, and I thought this was kind of a missed opportunity. I thought for sure once I saw that there was like a studio, I thought it was going to be Hellcat from Jessica Jones. I can't remember her real name. Jessica, I think it is. But she, I thought that was going to be a cool opportunity to make her present. Because I think she did have a cameo in Defenders. I could be wrong. So she's there having an interview with this guy along with a senator who's all for gun control. Lewis is loosely based off of Timothy McVeigh. Am I saying that right? Probably
That's
not.
the Unabomber, right?
Timothy McVeigh was the one in oh my god. It was when I was a kid. Was that Salt Lake City? No.
I thought Timothy McVeigh was the Unabomber. I'm gonna look it up.
I think they're two different people. I could be wrong. Trish, not Jessica. Her name's Trish. I thought that would have been a good. Yeah, I thought Lewis may have been.
Yeah, you're right. Ted Krasinski is the Unabomber.
Yeah. So sorry guys. So Punisher tracks down Lewis to find Curtis. That Curtis beat him to it because Curtis was also looking for Lewis because he figured it was him. And we find out that Curtis has been, well, we saw it. He was dispatched with his own leg, and then he was rigged to a bomb. Frank talks to Lewis while also telling Curtis behind the bomb that took Curtis's leg. It turns out Frank couldn't shoot a pregnant woman who ended up being a bomber, and that's why Curtis lost his leg. And Curtis didn't know that. Curtis thought, I mean, Frank did save Curtis's life, but at the same time, he put it in danger. Convincing Lewis to tell Frank to try the white wire. So he gets it. He pulls the wire, and they are safe. But Castle has to flee because the police are on the way, and he's seen on a dash cam revealing to the world that the Punisher is alive. During Frank's adventure, Micro meets with Madani, telling her that she needs Frank. Episode 10, Virtue of the Vicious. Okay, so this episode was the episode that goes back and forth. It's very time jumpy. I tried my best to do it in order so it'd be easier to talk about. If I missed something or if my timeline doesn't make sense, just let me know.
Yeah, now you know how I feel when I was trying to write notes for Twin Peaks. That's how I was. I'm like, how do I even write this crap? Not crap, but
yeah, it's easier when there's like one story to follow. When there's a bunch going on, it's a little difficult. But okay. Well, he built IUDs using stuff from Home Depot. I don't know how to do that. Oh, where did he get all? Yeah, like where did he get all of the?
Is it IUD or IED? Because IUD is an intrauterine device.
IED. Either way, something's bound to happen. I'll just leave it vague so it'd be funny. He's building giant IUDs so no one gets pregnant. Yeah, but where he got the claymores and stuff like that, I'm not sure. That is interesting, but I don't know. Everyone gets weapons pretty easily in this universe.
And this one.
And that guy seems to be like a doomsday prepper. Somebody made an IED out of IUDs. Or the opposite.
Yeah, right.
Or you can do the opposite. Okay, so Lewis finds Anvil Guard and takes him out and takes his uniform. But not before trying to free the man's birds. They don't go, though, so it's kind of like maybe a like statement on it's more talking about Lewis than it is talking about the birds. Billy's working security for the center at a hotel. When Madani visits him, she asks him why all the men at the Sting worked for Anvil. Billy denies any involvement. Lewis avoids Billy by taking the stairs, putting down anyone he comes across, and planting a bomb outside the senator's door. The senator is being interviewed by Karen, whose own gun was taken by the security downstairs. Castle arrives, trying to save Karen, with Lewis taking Karen as a hostage while wearing an explosive vest. They get to the kitchen, where Frank confronts Lewis, informing Karen stealthily that she needs to pull the white wire. She does. She gets away, and I guess she grabbed a gun from the skirmish upstairs because she had the gun back in her purse. Shoots him in the foot, pulls the wire, gets away, and Lewis locks himself into a freezer, reconnecting the bomb and committing suicide. And Frank kind of goads him into it. He's like, "Yeah, that's right, soldier, do it." Just to, I guess, get him out of the way. Frank pretends to take Karen as a hostage to get up the stairwell, or down the stairwell. Madani finds him to talk, only to be interrupted by Billy. Frank finds out that Billy's on the other side, and Madani confirms her suspicions that Billy killed Stein. Frank gets away. The cop we saw from Daredevil is investigating and interviewing Karen and the senator, finding out that the senator is using this attack to help him politically, and pretty much lying about what happened. Karen and Madani telling each other that they are in this together. And that is basically episode 10. There was a lot more, like, the episode had more substance because we got to see the same events happening from other characters' point of views. So the actual synopsis is a bit shorter. Once we get into the more action-packed parts, these synopses are going to get shorter because I'm not going to go by play-by-play action scenes. Yeah, and then an uppercut to the jaw.
So are you doing episode 11 now?
All right. This is now episode 11. I think this is where we say goodbye to Joe and Ashley.
Yes.
But thank you so much for joining us. And I hope you come back and take a look at this after when you're done. Hopefully I won't screw anything up. What about the scene in the kitchen? I said the scene in the kitchen. What are you talking about? With the white wire? Cal? You can take me instead? Well, Dub, I know you're not going to watch it. For anyone who doesn't know, when we talk to our friend Dub, he does not like the actor choice for the Punisher. He thinks he thinks he's too short, which is funny because Kimber was like he would make a great Wolverine because he definitely has
like those growls, and he's like animalistic. Especially, you see it a little more in this show than even Daredevil. Like, they let him.
Yeah, he's very primal. Ashley's like, as soon as you said this is where we say goodbye, Joe clicked off the video. Oh, well, thanks, guys. All right, next episode is called Danger Close. We're a few episodes away, and then we'll have the final discussion. Fake cops show up to Sarah's and take her and her son. Leo gets away and hides at a pool at a park waiting for Frank. Realizing that Russo could use Frank's phone as a tracer since Sarah had his number, he sends Micro to go get Leo, which is a very touching scene. And he lays a trap for Russo's men. Frank tears through them and meets with Micro and Leo at the end of the episode, along with Madani. Again, there was a lot of cool fighting. I thought the light bulb kind of flash grenades were really cool, that he would just leave them like a little trap set, and then if a man ran under it, he would shoot the light bulb out. I thought that was cool. I thought they were going to turn on the light bulbs and something would happen, but I liked them as like tactical traps more. Episode 12 is Home. Keep in mind, I'm also leaving out a lot of the flashbacks. We have flashbacks of Frank and his wife throughout the entire series. We get new bits of information, but it's pretty much the same scene. So I don't feel like I need to rehash that for anyone who's seen the episode. We learned everything we need to through those flashbacks. All right, so Frank and Micro sit down with Madani, to record the testimonies, and they plan a trade for Sarah and her son. They meet with Russo, and during the trade, Homeland shows up. I also want to mention the cool gasoline backpacks that Sarah and her son get as, like, I guess a liability in case they try to pull anything. They'll just set the backpacks on fire, which they tried to do, but Micro puts it out with his coat. And Micro gets killed for about 5 minutes before we find out that that was part of the thing, that they were going to think that he was dead, and they took Frank away, but at least Micro's back and stayed with his family, so they faked his death for a second time. Frank's back at the hideout, and Rollins got a new special pair of gloves to beat up Frank, and he's definitely getting off on it. He's having a lot of fun. Frank at a certain point, Frank is just beaten to a pulp, and he makes Russo like, look, I'm ready to go. I'm done. Just promise me you'll be the one to put me down. Like, soldier to soldier, let's do this. So Russo eventually becomes tired of Roland's attitude, because Roland's like, no, this is I'm going to draw this out as long as possible. And Russo's like, enough, man. Like, he was a soldier. Like, honor him like a soldier. Besides, like, he is our enemy, but like, there is that camaraderie there. So he kind of sicks Frank on Rollins, and then Homeland shows up, and Billy escapes. Now, this episode definitely felt like the finale, but I am glad that we got one more episode. I don't think that the 13th episode took anything away from... Are you telling the people how short I am? I don't even know that. I'd say to myself. Next episode is Memento Mori, which I thought was one of the coolest lines of the episode. It was like, that thing you're wearing, the skull on your chest, that's a Memento Mori. That's like supposed to remind you to live, not to die. And it's interesting. I really like that. Billy shows up to Curtis's trying to find Frank. There's a little bit of like a standoff back and forth, and Frank takes a shot at Billy once he steps in front of the window. Billy shoots Curtis in the shoulder, and Frank's like, look, let's meet face to face. You let Curtis go. And Billy's like, I'm not going to leave. You're going to shoot me. You have all the high ground and everything. And he's like, look, I won't shoot you if you leave Curtis away. We'll meet face to face. We'll take care of this. So they trust each other. They leave, and then later on that night, they meet at the carousel. Billy has 2 hostages bleeding out, tied up to horses,
who are terrified.
Because like Frank was being tactical. He was doing everything from the shadows, and now he's kind of forced to come save them before they bleed out. So he just shoots off these mortars to kind of like, I guess, distract Billy, and runs in. And after a shootout, they finally get onto the carousel itself, and they have a pretty good fight. Medini ends up getting shot because she just shows up, and Billy's like, bam, like no hesitation. And Punisher disarms them, and they have a pretty brutal fight.
You're not going to talk about who he's going to end up being, are you? Because there's some chat about that in the conversation.
I guess I'll give a warning about it beforehand.
Yeah, because
it's already so during this fight, he is shot through the cheek. That's pretty brutal. And then now at this point, like Frank's beating him up against this mirror, and just glass is getting everywhere. And he comes up, he takes him, and he scrapes his face along the glass. I wasn't expecting that. That was
I know, you were literally like
oh. Yeah, and it just gets worse. And like Frank's realizing that there's more. Like, death isn't punishment. Like, sometimes punishment is just taking something away from someone and leaving a reminder. So I think that's kind of a cool step for Punisher, to be like, I don't have to necessarily kill them. I can just disfigure them. So he's alive. He gets left alive, and Frank stays with Madani, making sure she doesn't bleed out, and the hostages while the cops arrive. We find out that the CIA, as a thank you, wipes Frank's DNA and prints from the system. They replace it with a dead man's as a thank you. Madani is healing up. Billy's in a coma. He's all stitched back up, but we don't know. They say he could be in a coma for a day to a few years.
Yeah, I actually loved that shot of him that we get with all the bandages, because that looked like a straight up comic book frame. I liked that.
And Micro is back with his family on Thanksgiving. So that's the full episode. I think as a series as a whole, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was somewhere between season 1 and season 2 of Daredevil. I really liked season 1 of Daredevil. Season 2 I didn't dislike, but I think this kind of had more of the Daredevil feel as far as grit. Now
I
we
know
can
Matt wants to call in too. So
I thought Matt wasn't calling in.
Oh, is he not?
Yeah, he said he wasn't calling in.
Oh, damn.
Now, okay, so we're going to go into speculation as well, because there's kind of no way to talk about what's to come out of this episode without saying it. So I didn't see it coming because I didn't know too much about the Punisher enemy background, and I also knew that the character we're about to talk about had a different backstory. So if you don't want to know anything about season 2 Punisher or who Billy Russo may become or what moniker he would take, thank you so much for joining us. Please like, subscribe, check out our other stuff that we got going on. But we will be talking about like what's to come. Somebody's talking about Reek.
Yeah, I really liked that that you're just a revenant stuff. Along the lines with the Memento Mori. I thought that was like an interesting way to look at the Punisher.
Yeah, he was saying that as Punisher was like dying, and he was like, "I'm ready, Billy." Like he was like,
"Yeah,
you're a revenant." What was Billy's motive? Self-preservation, I would say, right?
You know, that's a damn good question. I'm not terribly sure.
It seemed like he wanted to just save his own ass the entire time. Make sure you show no. I'm not editing this. So
yeah.
Nope.
This is what it is.
Anybody?
Yeah, I guess you can go because we've given way enough time for people to get out.
Okay. Well, Eric's more than welcome to come in at any point, but yeah, turns out Billy's Jigsaw. If you don't know who that is.
My dad is here. I think you might like it, Dad. It's kind of like hyper violent, but it was really good, and there's a lot of story. It has a lot to say about PTSD. I think you might enjoy it. I would give it a try if I was you. Are you caught up on all the rest of the Marvel?
You don't need to be caught up on Iron Fist or Defenders for Punisher.
Watch Daredevil at the very least.
Season 2 at the very least.
Because the second season of Daredevil has a lot to do with the Punisher. But you definitely would like Daredevil. That was wonderful, and I think you would like this one too.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is now. Oh, Hat Boy's here. I was expecting.
Yeah, no. That's why I just want to throw on the mask for a bit, just because it's different every time.
Oh my God, Eric and Hat Boy are the same guy?
1 second though, because my dad is just coming into the room. We are talking about spoilers for the final episode, Dad. So you might want to get out of here if you are planning on watching the show, because this will ruin the ending of the show for you. So let's give him a little warning to make sure that he hears that.
So how about some obscure sports team?
All right.
Yeah, so those Vegas Golden Knights are doing pretty good.
I prefer the Gotham Knights.
Actually, I prefer the Clarkson Golden Knights.
I prefer Golden Corral.
Okay, whatever.
Okay. Should be safe.
Okay, yeah.
All right, so yeah, I think now like the biggest thing is because the Billy episode where we got to see how sadistic he could be to his own mother. And that we get to see how sadistic he can be to his own friends. Like while he wasn't there pulling the trigger, we find out that Billy did know that Frank's family was going to be attacked, and we get to see. I didn't write that down, but we get to see that Billy was like a facet of Frank's family. He was Uncle Billy. So
yeah, it was insane. It was intense. Literally seeing how he was acting with Frank's family. Knowing that they were about to all die.
Was that the same day, or was that just
another day? It was the same day because they were at the carousel.
Well, carousel was a family tradition. That's why I asked.
Yeah. I mean, because the last time that would have happened would have been about 2 years prior to that, and they were all the same age. And so it makes sense if that was the day, because all the kids were the same age.
That sucks.
Yeah, he was doing that the day of, and I think his wife had the same dress on.
Oh wow. Okay, that's interesting. I kind of want to go back and check now, but I believe you. So yeah, I thought I didn't see the Jigsaw thing coming at all. I was familiar with Gangster Jigsaw, like we saw from Warzone, like to have them actually serve together and have this relationship before becoming the Punisher. Saying, what do you think?
I mean, I know nothing about most Punisher characters at all. I just sort of almost know the Punisher based on his involvement in other things, like his involvement in Civil War, mostly.
Yeah.
And also Secret Empire's involvement in Secret Empire as well as following Cap because he figures he was right.
Yeah, I had to stop you before because literally, like, Tom wasn't even thinking about the comments they kept saying about how pretty he was, and I pointed out something about it, and he got so salty and mad at me because
I was on episode 12, and I figured out that Billy was Jigsaw.
When I pointed that out, yeah.
And I was
so that's why I was like, don't do that, because you, like, did the same exact thing.
I got mad again over here. I was just like, oh, I'm mad.
I was like, I'm sorry, future Joe and Ash, if I did ruin it for you, but you guys are pretty good at picking up on stuff like that. just based on stuff with Just Whelmed. They're usually pretty good at pointing stuff out.
I would love if Anvil is some kind of I can't think of the word. Like
subsidiary?
A sub-company. Yeah, exactly, of Hammer. I think that would be really funny to learn.
Yeah, because the entire time they were saying Hammer at the Anvil, I was just thinking Hammer. I'm like, no, it's not.
Another thing I wanted to talk about now that we've recapped the whole show is the 3 characters that deal with PTSD and the different ways that they deal with them. And I think that's Lewis, the Punisher, and Billy.
And Curtis.
Curtis as well, but he isn't as focused on. Man, Curtis gets shit on this whole time. I was feeling bad for Curtis, to be honest.
I mean, I'm like I said at the top of the episode, it's like from the beginning, I didn't want certain people to die, and for one person of all that group winding up dead, you can't really complain, even though it was Sam Stein. I liked Sam Stein. He was a good character. He was a nice little comedic foil in the department, but
I am glad it wasn't Curtis, though, because, like I said, they gave him a really rough go of it this season, and that would have been a huge bummer to lose him.
I don't think Tom brought it up specifically, but Lewis literally beat Curtis with his own leg.
Yeah, that was really brutal, especially because, like, there were weapons involved in that fight, and it could have been the weapon, and then the weapon it ends up being is his own leg, which kind of feels like symbolic in itself. And
well, the whole time Lewis was reaching for that leg. I'm like, come on, Lewis, don't do it.
Don't do it. And I
guess if you're in a fight.
Yeah. I do want to talk about episode 10 because I'm a bit of a sucker for storytelling that is told in bits and pieces, and every now and then we just get to see more and more of the same situation. And I also love the difference between when the senator is telling the story about how Lewis and Frank got in, and what actually happened with Karen's account of the story. Because it's like when I was watching the senator's retelling, I'm like, I don't know, this doesn't seem right. Why would Frank just walk in behind him and not be going after Lewis at all? That doesn't make sense to me. And like, just the entire time, I'm just like, I don't know, something doesn't sit right. And my suspicions were validated later on when Karen's like, that's not what happened. He literally threw me to Lewis. So I'm like, yeah, that's probably what happened.
Yeah, the senator turned out to be a
real douche nozzle.
Yeah,
he was like hell on his knees. But again, like I don't know how I would handle that situation. That has to be scary.
Yeah.
And you liked Karen this season.
I thought Karen was better in Punisher than she was in Daredevil, and I understand that she got her start with the Punisher in Daredevil, but I thought she was a lot stronger.
Well, you know why? No romantic subplot. They just let her do her own shit,
Although I do think Frank has a soft spot for her.
Yes, Frank does state that she is family to him, which I got a little touched by. I'm like, oh, Frank.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the more success. Like if they had not brought in any other characters except for Barrett, and then it wasn't as successful as Karen, I would have been mad. But the fact that they brought in one character and it was really strong,
Yeah.
like they didn't need to bring in Foggy for like a one-line thing, because I think it was.
I also I'm a little annoyed that this was the one series that didn't have Rosario Dawson.
Yeah, but where would she really have fit in, you know, other than
one of the billion times they were patching up Frank?
Yeah, like I guess you could have switched it out for the Madani's parents fixing him up scene. But...
And also, I got a little theory about the whole metaphor with the birds not leaving. That's like, that was Lewis. His whole thing is like, I'm freeing all of you, and I think the birds not leaving was like, no, this isn't what we want. We want to be here where it's safe, not out there where it's not safe. So the birds were like the American people that he was supposedly freeing with his bombing actions, and that nobody's on his side.
I like that.
Because we talked about that scene a little bit, because to me, it more spoke to Lewis as a character than the actual birds themselves to me.
I like what
But that's an interesting way to look at it as well.
Matt, he asked if this was good enough to watch. I will say it's up there with Daredevil and Jessica Jones. Better than Defenders. I haven't seen Iron Fist because I refuse to watch it.
Yeah, also, I like to call episode 12 the episode where Frank gets beaten into sex dreams.
Yeah.
It kept happening. I'm like, I'm watching the episode, I'm like,
it was a little weird.
Frank a masochist?
It was weird because they established that Agent Orange like definitely got off on beating people. I have to rephrase that. So for him to be like, it would pan to like Agent Orange like inhaling the mist, you know what I mean? And then cut to Frank having a sex dream. And I'm like, these guys are both having very different reactions to this, but going to the same place.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was like more about like being on the brink of death and like having good things flashing before your eyes.
It was the home conversation.
Yes, it was definitely a metaphor for him seeing the light. But
yeah,
it's just funny. He was being beaten into sex dreams with his wife.
Tom also, we talked a little bit about those flashback scenes, and he said it could have gotten repetitive and it could have been like boring to keep seeing the flashbacks and stuff. But
so like Arrow seasons 3 and 4.
Yeah, we both thought that they did a good job with that, and that they did add to the show and give you a little bit more every time. So we liked the use of the flashbacks; they seemed appropriate.
It's like I liked how they didn't ever really return to one period during the flashbacks. Each time that there was a flashback, it was a different setting, different people, different things. Like we only got one with him in war. We got one with David and his family. We got
and that's smart.
One with Frank and his kids.
Yeah,
well, two with Frank and his kids, really.
They even like changed the set at certain points. Like they would pull away the walls and just give it black, and they're just on the bed by themselves talking. Like they did some really cool things to reinvent the scene while you're being told new information, but it's still the same scene in a way.
Yes.
Yeah, the wedding one was sad.
The wedding one was sad. He looked dapper though.
He did.
He did indeed look dapper.
I do buy him. Like he has a great look for like military guy. Like he looks like a lot of ways that he should. I'm just not sure if he looks like the Punisher.
I mean, depending on who draws him. I think when he had his hair was at the last couple of episodes, his hair was kind of matted down a little.
It's like
more like a little bowl cut.
It was a little distracting to me as we see like in episode 2 he shaves his head, and then over the course of the series his hair slowly grows into what it is in the finale.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, it's like I just kept taking notice. I'm like, wasn't his head shaved? Or is at least really short.
That could be a way to give you a progression of time. I don't think everything was happening as quickly as we thought it was happening. Like for them to get to Kentucky would take time for them to get back to Kentucky. I did like that they had the battle van.
Yeah, that was cool.
It's like the only Easter egg though. I didn't catch any other ones that were significant, which is disappointing. I always like the Marvel properties for like I don't even know if I noticed the Stan Lee picture.
I didn't either. I was looking for it. It's like initially when it's like when Lewis was carrying around a picture of the copy of the bulletin when he was taking out the one anvil guy to steal his stuff. I was like, I thought for a split second that was actually of Stan Lee, but then I looked again. I'm like, oh no, it's Lewis and the Punisher next to each other. Okay.
Yeah, that would have been clever, even if he was like a side article to just flash it real quick. But no, I didn't catch it, and I haven't seen any because I watched some Easter egg videos because I was curious if I missed anything, and I didn't see anything mentioned about Stan Lee.
Yeah, if anything, they were talking about the lack of Easter eggs in this season, from what we saw.
Yeah, because I think all of the Stan Lee cameos in the Netflix series has only been just the poster of him in the background.
Yeah, I think so too.
Sorry, I'm addressing the Doctor Who fan in the room. Doctor Who fan! That's literally just what I wrote. All right, well...
so I enjoyed the series. You guys enjoyed the series.
That's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
It's
a hell of a lot better than Iron Fist.
Yeah, for sure.
Again, Dub makes a good point. There were I liked the first 4 of Defenders. I thought the last 4 Defenders were garbage, but Dub makes a good point where he's saying that even the ways that Luke Cage refers to Danny Rand is kind of bullshit. Also, I love that everyone gives props to Wu-Tang Clan, but why is an 8-year-old or 10-year-old kid wearing a Wu-Tang Clan t-shirt?
Yeah, I don't know that felt a little out of place for me too.
That's next level shit.
But that's my brother though. My brother has been listening to Wu-Tang.
But if I saw a picture of your brother at 10 years old, I would probably think he would listen to Wu-Tang over this kid who just started stealing skateboards and knives. I don't. Where did he get a K-bar from? But yeah, this cat's.
Nevis, watch out for her little arm.
She has 4 little arms.
Well, her one was all weird.
All right. Well, Eric, since you've been so gracious to join us the entire episode, would you like to plug your stuff?
Yeah, of course. So at some point this week, I'm going to upload an episode of Bunk Luck. I just haven't edited it. And also, I guess next week, Just Whelmed is coming back. Because I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that fan friction was ending. I guess it's time to come back. just so that people aren't as busy. So
yeah,
so we're swapping to 2 episodes a week this time. So probably sometime in the afternoon on Sunday, we'll be starting the first 2 episodes of season 2 for Just Whelmed, and that should be a lot of fun. Hopefully we'll get some reactions out of Joe.
I felt like you were directing that towards me for some reason.
I don't know what I could possibly be bringing up. It's like, Sleeping Beauty.
Look, man, I get off work.
Tom is barely Sleeping Beauty. You guys don't understand.
Oh, I think you froze, or did I freeze, or I don't know what happened. So all right. So yeah, I don't know what's going on. I'm seeing you guys sort of freak out. I don't know. Maybe it's. Oh, yep. Okay, it looks like it was you guys.
Oh, we froze?
Yeah, you froze for a while. I
said that Tom is barely Sleeping Beauty and that he works 6 nights a week and sleeps far less than the rest of us. This cat.
Yeah, fair enough.
Sorry, this cat's just enjoying this way too much. All right, well, hashtag Cats of Blab, and thank you so much for joining us, Eric.
All right, no problem. I'm glad that I got to call in. I'm a little sad that I was the only one that did call in, because this
me too.
This could have brought a lot of discussion, but it's an hour 45. Not bad.
No, not bad for an entire because we did what, Stranger Things in an hour and a half.
Something like that, but there wasn't as many episodes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, a little denser with the dialogue on Stranger Things, though.
Yeah, it's more dialogue than it is action.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so we're gonna plug what we got going on tomorrow. We're gonna be doing. I don't know the time yet. I'll post what time. Probably around 8. We'll be doing another Fallout Plays live. So come yell at us there. Let us know what to do. We've already covered a lot more ground than we did in the 5th episode. So we at least are progressing in some sort of fashion.
I mean, it might be nice to have Joe in your ear during all that.
Actually, Joe may be on the call with us tomorrow night. So
really, that seems a little helpful. That'd be like having me in the next Nuzlocke episode.
I don't know.
I don't know.
We're Pokemon rivals. You may be giving me false information.
Yeah, false information.
We'll also be releasing a few episodes of Animal Crossing throughout the week. There's no Mormo Zone tomorrow. There's no Encrypted Wednesday. We hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving. If we don't see you before then, please like, subscribe, comment, do all that fun stuff. I'm not going to tell you to ring that bell. You're not no Hunchback of Notre Dame. You don't have to do that. But if you thought that joke was funny, why don't you ring that bell?
You're also not on the corner dressed as Santa Claus asking for money.
Yo, I hate those dudes.
One thing I did forget to plug, though, I'm going to be on the next episode of Gamer Grudge.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
So check that out. It's the 27th.
Oh, okay, cool. Coming up.
Yep.
Well, I wish you luck, good sir. I myself will be fighting on Gamer Grudge, I believe, on the 4th. We have a backup date, but that's a Monday in between OSPs, so we won't be having OSP that night. So I will not be running around with a chicken.
Running around with a chicken?
Yeah. Running around with a chicken.
Just running around with a chicken.
All right. So the hashtag to cheer on Tom in the championship is hashtag running around with a chicken.
Hey man. I'll run around with all the chickens in this place.
And I guess the hashtag for Mac would be gold rings.
Yeah. Hashtag Mega Man is the best. So that's it from us, guys. Have a great night. Thank you so much for joining us. If you want to tweet at us, let us know your opinion on the Punisher. You can tweet me at OddShapePanel. And you can tweet Kimber at
Kimberbatch_OSP.
And you can always check out Oddshape channel, where we're guaranteed to be at least a month and a half behind updating you. Check out everything else on Oddshape channel's YouTube channel. And we have a blog on WordSpace, WordPress.
Tom eventually gets there.
What were you saying about sleep before?
Yeah, he doesn't get any, and we still haven't eaten dinner, so we're gonna get out of here right now, guys.
You guys gonna have some McNuggets?
No, I'm gonna make a salad, actually, like the opposite of McNuggets.
Because if you were, I'd say you'd be running around with that chicken.
Run around chicken. All right, guys. Have a great night. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye. Just kidding.